We have some wild news to go over today. Aaron Rodgers has called out his team is following yet another brutal loss. Aaron Rodgers has called out multiple players, including one player in particular that has fans fired up, but not only that, we have TJ Watt making some wild comments, calling out Tara Lawson, and Mike Tomlin addressing the Fire Tomlin chants. A ton to go over today following what was an absolutely brutal, heartbreaking loss. But before we get into it all, folks, if you're a part of the percentage who aren't subscribed to the channel, this is the place to be for daily Steelers content. You guys have been an absolute piece of support. It means the world to me. Folks, a lot to go over today, and it was an awful loss, right? They put up 7 points, Fire Tomlin chants. I'm not going to say this is rock bottom. You could argue it's rock bottom of this season thus far. You still have the Steelers still have a chance to win the division, all these different things. But Aaron Rodgers came out, and let's just dive right into it. Let's not waste any more time, and called out multiple people, mainly his wide receivers / receivers in general. And you can see here the quote tweet. We have reached a stage of the Aaron Rodgers experience where he starts to throw teammates under the bus. And that stemmed from the quote tweet here, which of course are the full tweet, which says, Rodgers was asked on how to get more production in the pass game. He said, when there's film sessions, everyone shows up. When I check to a route, run the right route. And this got people pretty, you can see, I mean, he finished a tweet with, geez, this has gotten the fan base pretty stirred up, because there is points in the past where Aaron Rodgers, not necessarily lacks accountability, but finger points a little bit. And boy, did he do that here, specifically about Jonnu Smith. So let's go over the full quote. I just said, of course, the part about the route. And he said, Jonnu Smith and I weren't on the same page. I checked to his in breaker and he ran an outbreaker. Jonnu is a true professional, so I'm sure he's sick about that. And it started with a little bit of accountability, ended with direct finger pointing to Jonnu Smith. And I mean, Jonnu Smith did run the wrong route, but at the same time, I don't know if publicly calling him out is necessarily the best thing. And of course, Aaron Rodgers, first ballot Hall of Famer, he's going to be, I mean, we know that. Like, he is one of the best wide receivers, or quarterbacks of all time, throwing to. And he's gotten a lot of wide receivers who were not necessarily amazing, having amazing seasons. Is that happening with the Steelers? No, it hasn't happened. The opposite has actually happened. They bring in DK Metcalf, and they expect him to be that wide receiver one. You have Aaron Rodgers, a great thrower, even though he's declined a little bit since his time, of course, with the Packers. But he calls out Jonnu Smith here. And Jonnu Smith was somebody that on the Dolphins last year, before they traded for him, was a really good tight end. One of the better tight ends, not one of the better in the league necessarily, but a really solid tight end. He's been around a while, and he is a true professional. But to say that he's upset because it's probably his fault, which it is, I don't know if that's necessarily the right way to do it. And he calls out the rest of the team as well here. He admitted that the Steelers had a poor practice week leading up to this week against the Bills. I thought we had a better preparation week and a poor practice week. I'm not sure if it was the cold weather or what it was, but it wasn't our best week of practice. And of course, they're dealing with a bit of injuries, but this was supposed to be the week where they were fairly healthy. And of course, they got Asante Samuel Jr. They called him up. They healthy scratched Darius Slay, and they were doing all these different things. Of course, they still have Marquez Valdez-Scantling in the woodworks, which is something that Aaron Rodgers has been pushing for. I mean, he pushed for the Steelers to sign him. Rodgers basically went all out and just called out everyone at this point, specifically Jonnu Smith, but also, DK Metcalf. And he spoke out about a lot of different, things in this interview, and we'll dive into what his thoughts are on the coaches in a minute. But they need to be better, right? Both Aaron Rodgers, the wide receivers, Arthur Smith, everyone. And you can see here, he says that the struggles are on the players rather than the coaches. He said, I believe in the coaching staff. I believe in Mike Tomlin. That's why I came here, and players need to take accountability, myself included, and I will continue to. I need to play better. And I want you guys to let me know down below in the comment section, do you think that, Aaron Rodgers calling out Jonnu Smith, calling out his wide receivers is a good thing? Do you think it's on the wide receivers? Do you think it's more on the coaching? I know a lot of people are saying it's in the coaching. Aaron Rodgers didn't throw great balls yesterday, but also in the game before he got hurt, so a couple weeks ago, he wasn't throwing great balls either. And of course, it was windy, all these different things. But yesterday was more, I think, ultimately on the wide receivers, whether that's Jonnu Smith running a bad route, whether that's Calvin Austin just being too short at 5'9" to catch a ball and not making the right read. Rodgers threw some really good balls yesterday, but he also had some, bad balls. And that's the way that things go. But I don't know if calling out, especially Jonnu Smith, who's had a decreased role, at least in the the offensive side, outside of tackling. I don't know if that was necessarily the right call, but at the same time, it is, what it is. And that all led to, of course, the Fire Tomlin chants. Now, if you were at the stadium, if you were watching on TV, you could hear the fire Mike Tomlin chants, and it was because of the fact that they had an atrocious second half. They got for the game pretty good, right? 7-0, and then they held the Bills to a field goal, so it was 7-3, and then it all went downhill from there. And we'll dive into some comments from TJ Watt here in a minute, but Mike Tomlin spoke out about the fire Tomlin chants, and he said, man, I share the frustration tonight. We didn't do enough. That's just the reality of it. And of course, that was following a 26-7 loss. You can see here from Nick Farabaugh. They fall to 6-6, and of course they play Baltimore next week. So if they win that, they're in a great spot. I don't know if they're in a great spot to actually have playoff success, and they haven't. It's been a while since they, had playoff success and won a playoff game. But I still have faith in the team, and I'm not, making this video to be all negative. However, that's kind of how we all feel right now. It's pretty negative. It was, the fire Tomlin chants, are they warranted? Probably. They ran some atrocious plays, and they ran some bad defensive structure, some bad offensive plays. They ran the same thing over and over again, running the ball on second and long, all these different things. It all led to TJ Watt speaking out about the defense. Now, I don't want to sit here and say the defense was fully the problem yesterday because they scored 7 points, right? So it can never be fully the problem if they're putting up 7 points, 1 touchdown. However, TJ Watt said that he's never seen a team run the same play as many times the Bills did last week. They kept spamming duo and mid-zone weak. Watt said the Steelers tried many different things to adjust. It didn't work. Now, I'm curious to see what your guys' thoughts are on this, and I'll probably have a full video on it. TJ Watt didn't have a great game. He was going up, and keep in mind, the Bills had a decimated O-line, and we saw it early in the game. The Bills, they were running the ball a lot to start the game, of course, with James Cook. That's what happens when you have a decimated O-line. But at the same time, Cook was shut down pretty good early, and I was thinking, okay, this is looking good. And then, of course, Terrell Austin was running a lot of blitz-heavy defense against Josh Allen because their O-line was pretty rough. You have TJ Watt, all these different things. That was working. They were putting some pressure on Josh Allen. He was having to throw the ball away immediately, and that's why they got so many stops in the first half, because Josh Allen knew his O-line was rough. You have a rookie, multiple people in the O-line who are inexperienced. One rookie against, I believe it was a rookie, or at least his first career start at the position, I think it was, maybe not a rookie, against TJ Watt. And in his first career start at that position, at least of the year, TJ Watt didn't get a sack. He didn't really make anything happen, and not blaming him fully. But in the start of the game in the first half, TJ Watt was supposed to make an impact, and he was to a degree early. Josh Allen knew he had to throw the ball quickly because he was expecting Watt to get through their decimated O-line, and all these guys, the secondary practice squad players, if you want to call it, they didn't get it done, and they did not do enough, and they kept running the same play. The defense couldn't figure it out, and of course, that's what led to the Mike Tomlin chants. That's what led to, ultimately Aaron Rodgers calling out the wide receivers. They're in a bad spot now. They're 6-6. You're technically behind the Ravens, of course. You have a chance to take them over on Sunday, but how much faith is there really? Now, the positive side is the Ravens don't look great either. They just lost to the Bengals. They haven't been looking great. The Steelers are in a fine spot. They have to find a way to get DK Metcalf more involved. Their passing game has been absolutely atrocious. Your backup wide receivers, Calvin Austin, Rowan Wilson, neither of those guys have made an impact, right? And DK Metcalf hasn't really made an impact. They didn't really get Darnell Washington involved. Jonnu Smith running the wrong route. Pat Fryermuth, Connor Heyward, obviously not getting, he's a fullback. But it's rough. He's our fourth-string tight end. But at the end of the day here, they called up Asante Samuel Jr. yesterday. Call up Marquez Valdes-Scantling. Get some sort of threat back in there, whether it be a deep threat, whether it be on go routes. Figure it out, or else we're going to have to relive yet another season of mediocrity for this team.